nation holds its breath as England face Germany at the Euros. The story is all too familiar, but can they change the ending after 55 years without a tournament win? The game is on a knife edge as chances come and go. Also tonight, schools out, fury at the government as COVID rules force hundreds of thousands of pupils to isolate.
Start your lesson with 30 children, finish it with 10 children.
Caught on camera, the PM condemns the harassment of the Chief Medical Officer, Chris Whitty, and...
I mean, it's still rather distant, Sandra.
No, that's very wide.
The monarch and the First Minister all smiles as the Queen rolls out a royal charm offensive to save the Union.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. Millions of England fans are willing their team on to victory tonight against Germany. For those of us not watching, as it stands, honours are even, and yes, it does look like it's heading for penalties once again. At stake is a place in the Euro quarter-finals and perhaps the easiest route to the final itself. It is a huge occasion with a crowd to match. 40,000 fans are inside Wembley. That's the biggest since the start of the pandemic. Among those cheering England on are the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and their eldest son, Prince George. From Wembley, here's our sports editor, Steve Scott, on the build-up and the latest action.
There are very few events with the power to unite a nation. Today is one of those. The lucky ones are here, but the vast majority, from diehards to big game only fans, will all have found a way to watch the drama play out. Many, many millions of them. That it's Wembley, that it's old rivals Germany, and that it's win or your tournament is over makes it all the more special, all the more tense.
Please don't go to penalties. I'd be happy if we just get a win.
I don't think my heart could take it.
I already know that we've lost a lot of times against Germany, but I hope we win today.
Germany's gonna win.
Yeah, 5-0 I think, in regular time.
For the England players, no better stage, no better chance to carve out their own piece of tournament history. Images that will forever be replayed. The occasion deserved the increased crowd size of 45,000. Among them, fathers and sons creating their own special memories. It was cagey to start, but it was England who conjured up the first real threat, top scorer Sterling giving Neuer a workout in the German goal. Now into their stride, England were looking increasingly threatening. Trippier's cross perhaps deserved better from Maguire. The momentum changed once more, and two Chelsea teammates almost edged Germany in front. Havertz to Werner, but Pickford good enough to maintain England's clean sheet record. If there was to be a Wembley after party, the live music and guest list was already booked. As half-time approached, scampering Sterling again caused confusion in the German defence. Captain Kane so nearly got his tournament first. Germany started the second half as they had the first. Havertz's technique exemplary. Pickford again, a titanium shield in the England goal.
But there's been drama in the last few minutes. Gareth Southgate rolled the dice, brought on some substitutes. The ever-popular Jack Grealish was involved in a build-up which led to Raheem Sterling giving England the lead with around 15 minutes to go. Sterling getting his third goal in this tournament so far, the only person who's actually scored for England. So England have another 15 minutes or so to hang on. If they can, they go through and become firm favourites to make the final. The bookies' favourites anyway. So 1-0 at Wembley with 10 or so minutes to go.
Right, Steve, thank you very much for that. Well, millions of people are watching across the country, at home, in pubs and at special fan zones. Dan Rivers is at a ticketed event in South London. But first, let's go to Sangeeta Lal, who's with fans in Manchester. So, Sangeeta, how are the nerves holding up there?
Well, they were feeling pretty hard earlier, but now, as you can see, the atmosphere is completely electric. So much relief from fans here who've been watching throughout the night. What better place to watch than in the sunshine? Here, that goal from Raheem Sterling. Absolute sigh of relief from everyone cheering him on. There have been some pretty difficult moments in the game so far. Harry Maguire's near miss at the beginning of the game. Obviously, so many fans here cheering him on, and then Harry Kane's miss at the end of the first half. But everyone here told me that gave them hope for the second half. Hope you can certainly still feel here as England are one step closer to beating Germany, getting through to the quarterfinals of the Euros and beating Germany for the first time since 1966 in a major tournament.
Well, it's an absolutely cacophonous atmosphere here at the Box Park down in Croydon. As you can see, all attempts at social distancing have just gone out the window. Among those watching down here today is Stormzy. I don't know if you can see him down there celebrating that goal a few minutes ago with his friends. John Barnes here as well. 500 people packed in here, and the atmosphere has just gone completely electric. I should think they can hear them in Wembley. Everyone on their feet, the 500 people here singing their hearts out. They are beginning to believe that England can do this.
OK, I think we all are, aren't we? Fingers crossed. Sangeeta Lal in Manchester and Dan Rivers in South London. Thank you both. And we will have an update before the end of the programme, don't worry. But in the meantime, let's move on to other news. And 1 in 20 pupils missed school in England last week as coronavirus continues to surge. The vast majority of them were forced to isolate because of close contact with a confirmed COVID case. Concerns are growing about the impact it's having on students, staff and their parents. The government says it is looking at daily rapid testing in schools, but that has, of course, its own challenges. Here's Rachel Younger.
You focus on 1, 2, 5 and 6.
They're learning to calculate. But right now, there's only one number that matters in every school: how many children are missing.
Sometimes you could start your lesson with 30 children, finish it with 10 children. We get confirmation of a positive case and then pupils are sent away within minutes.
A third of the school was off yesterday because of just 16 cases. For its head teacher, it feels like yet another lockdown.
To be back in that situation again and being told to carry on regardless is a complete farce and doesn't allow me to give the confidence to my parents that these children that I am dedicated to will get the care that they need.
Across the country, pupil absence due to COVID has risen from 1.2% a fortnight ago to 5.1% last Thursday. That's 375,000 pupils out of class, the vast majority self-isolating after potential contact with a positive case. But there is a solution. There's a school just a couple of miles from here where they're piloting direct contact tracing, which means that if a child's ill, they're sent home, but others around them are simply tested in school every morning. With so many pupils currently off, that's what this school and many others want to be brought in now, not in September. But the schools minister still won't commit to extending it.
That trial ends tomorrow, and the scientists will be looking at the data from that to see whether it is an effective alternative to social isolation.
Many schools in the hardest hit areas have been saying for weeks now they need more flexibility. They can't wait. Why not roll this trial out now across the country and keep more children in schools?
There are higher rates of self-isolation in areas where the infection rate is highest. And of course, this is all part of the national measures that we're all subject to try and tackle the spread of this deadly virus.
But for many parents, the more pressing threat is more time off work, homeschooling.
This morning, as my mum was actually dropping me off in the car park, she got a ring from my baby brother's school, and he's had a positive case in his class, so now he's home isolating. So now she's got a little 1-year-old and my 9-year-old brother at home.
There is a delicate equation between protecting public health and maintaining education. But for too many children, the government's calculations don't seem to add up. Rachel Younger, ITV News, Oldham.
Well, our political correspondent Romilly Weeks joins me from Westminster. So, Romilly, is the government then going to make any changes on this before the summer holidays, do you think?
Well, Mary, the summer holidays are just 3 weeks away, but 3 weeks, as you heard in Rachel's report, that really matter to families trying to manage having children at home again and work, and to pupils who have missed so much already. Ministers are waking up to the fact that this is a real issue, and the Education Secretary has released a statement saying that he is working with the Health Secretary to relax these measures. But I've spoken to some of his team today and to Number 10, and I'm afraid that is not going to happen before the summer holidays. The government is at pains to point out that they appreciate the toll this is taking on families. The rules will be different by September, when it is likely that daily testing is going to replace self-isolation for close contacts of those with COVID. But I'm afraid until then, parents are going to have to face waiting for that dreaded call from school that their children might be being sent home. And I speak as someone who's got 3 children off school at the moment.
Oh dear, poor Romilly. At Westminster, thank you. Well, Wales recorded 0 COVID deaths in a week for the first time since the start of the pandemic. For the week ending the 18th of June, COVID-19 was not listed on any death certificates. In England, there was a slight increase in COVID-related deaths same week, from 83 to 102. Travel between Scotland and parts of the northwest of England will be allowed again from tomorrow. Restrictions between Manchester, Bolton and Salford will end, but travel to and from Blackburn remains on hold. Now, the relatives of the former footballer Dalian Atkinson say the police officer who killed him should have been sacked years ago. Today, PC Benjamin Monk was sentenced to 8 years in prison for manslaughter after he kicked Mr Atkinson in the head. The Atkinson family said it was a callous attack on a man who needed help. Here's Ben Chapman.
With the same quiet dignity they have shown throughout the trial, Dalian Atkinson's siblings emerged from court after watching the police officer who kicked and killed their brother jailed for 8 years. Their solicitor reading a statement on their behalf.
PC Monk used horrendous force against Dalian, who was in an extremely vulnerable position and in mental health crisis, and he needed help. This was a callous attack and a terrible abuse of a police officer's position of trust. As his fellow footballers take the knee, we hope that they will honour the memory of Dalian.
Kicked him in the area which I believe to be his shoulder area.
PC Benjamin Monk of West Mercia Police claimed he'd used reasonable force when trying to subdue Dalian Atkinson in 2016. But after first tasering him, PC Monk then kicked him twice in the head, with what the judge called the obvious risk of serious injury. The judge told PC Monk he'd let himself and his police force down. He accepted the officer's actions were out of character and that he'd shown genuine remorse. But he said the sentence must reflect the importance of maintaining confidence in the police.
He was the man of my dreams. He was the man that I could always rely on to make me feel good.
Karen Wright was Dalian's long-term partner and told me the judge had sent an important message.
If we've got brutality on our streets by people that we rely on in the, then the justice system needs to serve justice.
PC Monk left in a prison van, the first officer in 3 decades to be jailed for manslaughter while on duty. Dalian Atkinson's siblings hope it will lead to more families of those who die in custody to achieve justice. Ben Chapman, ITV News, Birmingham.
Still to come on the ITV Evening News, it has got to stop. The former Bank of England governor's verdict on Amazon destroying stock. And the Queen love bombs Scotland. Those stories and more after the break. Join me then. Welcome back. England's Chief Medical Officer Chris Whitty may be given police protection after he was confronted and harassed in a central London park. A video of the encounter with a group of men has been widely circulated on social media. Now, the Prime Minister says he was shocked at the footage, and police say they have robustly warned the men responsible. Neil Connery has more.
This video appears to show England's chief medical officer, Professor Chris Whitty, being accosted by two men on Sunday in St James's Park in London. They laugh and jeer, grabbing hold of the professor, who struggles to get free and looks deeply uncomfortable. The professor has played a key role in the UK's response to COVID, regularly appearing at TV briefings over the past 16 months. The Prime Minister said, "I'm shocked at seeing the despicable harassment of Chief Medical Officer Chris Whitty. I condemn the behaviour of these thugs. Our hard-working public servants should not have to face this kind of intimidation on our streets, and we will not tolerate it." This isn't the first time Professor Whitty has suffered public harassment. On Saturday, anti-lockdown protesters shouting "traitor" and "shame on you" gathered outside his flat. And in February, a young man accosted him near Westminster.
"You're a liar."
He later gave this response.
The odd young lad showing off occasionally happens. I didn't think anything of it, frankly. I was very surprised it was picked up by the media at all.
The Metropolitan Police say the two men were robustly warned about their behaviour and ordered to leave the area. They say the incident has been recorded as a common assault and continues to be investigated by the Met's Public Order Crime Team. Neil Connery, ITV News.
The former governor of the Bank of England has condemned the retail giant Amazon for throwing away millions of new and unused items. Mark Carney's comments follow the ITV News investigation last week. Mr Carney, who's now UN Special Envoy on Climate Action and Finance, spoke to our business editor, Joel Hills, who is here now. What did he say?
Well, look, reuse, recycle, reduce waste. These are the basic principles, Mary, that sit behind our attempt to tackle climate change. Now, last week, as you said, we revealed that Amazon, in a warehouse near Glasgow, is destroying millions of unsold stock items every year. These pictures were taken in Dunfermline, not far from Glasgow, which is hosting COP26 in November. Now, Mark Carney is the government's finance advisor for COP26. This is what he had to say about Amazon's conduct.
These are the types of actions that have to be stopped. They have to be eliminated, and there has to be a life cycle approach. Not just, that's an extreme example. Is reported. We see other extreme examples in the fashion industry where, literally perfectly good goods are destroyed.
Amazon insists no unsold goods are sent to landfill and many, Mary, are donated to charity. Mark Carney says he thinks actually Amazon is moving faster than any other tech company towards net zero. But he says some companies need to do more. He's urging more banks, Mary, to join the Net Zero Banking Alliance before COP26 in November. Those that don't, he says, are not fully committed to tackling global warming.
OK, Joel Hills, thank you. But other news now, and a man has been charged with the murder of Sergeant Matt Ritana. The police officer was shot at Croydon Custody Centre last September. This afternoon, Louis de Zoyza was charged with his murder. The 23-year-old has been in hospital under police guards since September. And emergency shelters have been set up after flash flooding hit parts of Somerset overnight. Homes were inundated and motorists had to be rescued by the fire service after 2.5 inches of rain fell in just 3 hours last night. Now, the Queen has met with the First Minister Nicola Sturgeon on the second of her 4-day trip to Scotland. It's all part of the traditional Holyrood week, but this year's has extra significance, as our royal editor Chris Shipp now reports.
In Edinburgh, the Royal Standard was flying above the Palace of Holyrood House this morning, the Queen in Scotland for the first time since elections which returned majority support for independence.
First Minister, Your Majesty.
Which all made her audience with Nicola Sturgeon this morning that much more interesting. The Queen had to cancel Scotland Week last year because of COVID.
Well, it is, and a year's gap is incredible. Absolutely. So come and take a seat. To have you back here.
It's not unusual for the Queen to meet the First Minister of Scotland, but with everything that's happened this year, today's meeting is more significant, isn't it?
So the constitutional situation is very fragile indeed, and it makes the royal family's position very difficult. They want to emphasise that Scotland's part of the UK. On the other hand, they don't want to be stepping into politics in a way that could backfire.
And so, as the Queen landed in Stirling this afternoon, a chance to ask those who live in Scotland about her role here. for independence or against independence?
For it.
If Scotland's going to be independent, you think the Queen should or shouldn't be head of state?
She shouldn't be head of state anywhere.
This is the whole of the UK. She spends a lot of time up here. She makes it no secret that she loves coming to Scotland as well, so I still think it's as valid as it ever was.
The Queen has Scottish roots, of course, and SNP policy is to keep her as head of state, much like Canada or New Zealand. But more than half of independence supporters say they'd rather be a republic if Scotland left the UK. It remains a sensitive issue here. Chris Ship, ITV News, Stirling.
In tennis, the British #1 Dan Evans is through to the second round of Wimbledon. He defeated Spain's Feliciano Lopez in a straight-set win after rain-delayed play yesterday. And it ends a 4-match Grand Slam losing streak for the 31-year-old, who is the 22nd seed. So let's return to our top story now. England against Germany at Wembley. Raheem Sterling scored for England whilst we were on air, and there has been another goal. Our sports editor Steve Scott is there. So go on, Steve, what's the latest?
Well, it's good news if you're an England fan, Mary, because England scored a second goal just when it looked like England were protecting their lead. Germany were desperate to get an equaliser, and we might have had that inevitability of penalties. No, Jack Grealish got involved again, and it was captain Harry Kane who got his head on the end of it to score the second goal. Kane, who hasn't scored in this tournament so far, who everyone was concerned about the fact that he wasn't in form, but he's finally got off the mark. Redemption, of course, for Gareth Southgate and that penalty miss in '96. And when you look at the teams who've gone home, the big teams who've gone home, you look at the way this draw is opening up for England. Surely they've never had a better chance. They'll know later tonight who they'll play in Rome next week.
Steve, thank you for that, but Southgate's still not smiling, is he? Quite. You can catch full highlights of the big match tonight on ITV and UTV at 10:45 and STV at 11:10. And the programme also includes highlights of tonight's big match between England's next opponents, Sweden versus Ukraine. And that is all for now. Julie will be here with all the reaction, and there'll be lots of it to the match on News at 10. But from me and all the team here, bye-bye.